Hi, my name is Phillip Zavelsky. On behalf of the Faith Community Councils, I'm giving a talk on Jewish religion and as it pertains to hospital situations. I am a lay leader within the Jewish community, and before I go any further, I would like to give an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the First Nations people who have walked and cared for this land for thousands of years. We acknowledge their descendants who maintain their spiritual connection with this land and the traditions passed down from generation to generation. We thank them for sharing their cultures, spiritualities, and ways of living with the land in this place we all now call home. We pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. May we continue to walk gently and respectfully together with each other. Judaism is the oldest of the three monotheistic religions, or the Abrahamic religions. Judaism is approximately 4,000 years old, Christianity approximately 2,000 years old, and Islam roughly 1,400 years old. Being a Jew is basically an accident of birth. If you have a Jewish mother, you're automatically Jewish. Why is it based on the Jewish mother and not on the father? For the very practical reason, and you'll hear about practicalities within the Jewish religion, that we all know who our mothers are because they give birth to us, but sometimes we mightn't necessarily know who our fathers are. So for that very practical reason, it's based on matrilineal lines, not patrilineal lines. But all the decisions and everything like that in a Jewish family are usually made by the family itself, not any one individual person within the family, normally. The major differences between Orthodox, conservative and liberal is their belief in the origins of the Torah. The Torah is our holiest book, it's the 5 books of Moses. The Orthodox believe that the Torah was given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai roughly 3,300 years ago. So everything that's in the Torah is God-given, so therefore we can't change it. The conservatives feel that yes, it is God-given, but it's also it was given because it was given 3,300 years ago. It needs to be modernized a little bit. So therefore they use the basis of the Torah, but they bring in some modern interpretations to that. The liberals, which was a result of the Enlightenment and the emancipation in Europe in the 19th century, the Reform Jews or the liberal Jews decided that they wanted to be like everyone else. So therefore they went very, very far. So much so that some of them even, instead of having their Sabbath on Saturday, they had it on Sunday. And they introduced organ music. They wanted to be the same as everyone else in the community. So they believe that the Torah is not given by God, but it is man's interpretation of God, of what God wanted. So because it's man-made, they don't have to abide by all the rules and regulations. Judaism also, one of our major beliefs is what's called the dignity of difference. Judaism holds that we have a belief. Everyone has a belief. We respect everyone's right to their belief, and all we ask in return is that they respect our right to our belief. We don't say we have the belief, because sadly, groups of people who say we have the belief, in other words, we're right and you're wrong, you either change to our belief or we'll do something terrible to you. That is the result. The world has seen lots of terrible results of that belief, between the difference between a belief and the belief. So because of that, we don't proselytize, we don't have missionaries, and as a result of that, the Jewish religion is very small. There's only something like 14 million Jewish people in the whole world. There's something like maybe 2,000 or 2,500 Jews in Brisbane. In Queensland, maybe 5,000. In the whole of Australia, maybe 100,000 Jewish people in Australia. Judaism focuses on the power of ideas, not the idea of power. Basically, we haven't had our own country for over 2,000 years since the temple was destroyed. And as a result of that, we've been scattered throughout all the nations. So we've never had any sort of power. And as a result of that, we've been persecuted with anti-Semitism, etc., etc. And it's only now, since 1948, with the establishment of the State of Israel, that for the first time in 2,000 years, that we do have a small power base, but it is still governed by the ideas, not by the power. The Jewish concept is that a baby does not have any rights until it is actually born. So therefore the fetus does not have any rights until it is born. So therefore, if there's a problem between saving the mother or saving the baby, you always save the mother, because the mother can go on and have more children, but the baby, as I said, doesn't have any rights until they're actually born. So with a Jewish boy, when a Jewish boy is born, on the 8th day, so long as he is well and healthy, he is circumcised, and that means that he's entering into the covenant of Judaism. So Abraham, the first Jew 4,000 years ago, at the grand old age of 99, he circumcised himself, and ever since then there was a covenant made between the first Jew, Abraham, and God, that if Abraham and all the Jewish people accepted God's laws and lived by the rules that God has mentioned in the Torah, then there would be this strong covenant that God would protect the Jewish people. So on the 8th day, so long as the boy is healthy, if he's not healthy, then the first day that he is healthy enough in order to have a Brit Milah ceremony. The girls, they're not circumcised, of course, but on the first Sabbath after they're born, then the father or the closest male relative is called up to the reading of the Torah in the synagogue, and she is given a Jewish name. The boy is given his Jewish name at the Brit Milah. So all Jewish children have two names. They have an English name and a Hebrew name. The Hebrew name is basically their name. Say, for example, my name is Philip in English, but my Hebrew name is Raphael, and my father's name was Moshe, so it's Raphael ben Moshe, Raphael son of Moshe. Okay? The interesting thing is that we are always known as so-and-so, the son or the daughter of the father, but when we are ill, or when we, after we pass away, we change that to the mother's name. So therefore, instead of my mother's name was Zipporah, so therefore, if I get very, very ill, then they will change my name to Raphael ben Zipporah. And if you're saying prayers for sick people, you're always doing it as the mother's name, not the father's name. So therefore, both men and women have very important roles in all aspects of the Jewish life. Okay, so when a person dies, the most important thing is that you don't touch the body at all. You call the Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha means holy society, and their job is to let the funeral parlour know, and they will also contact the rabbi, and then they will come and they will take the body to the funeral home. Then the Chevra Kadisha will prepare the body, so that they'll do what is called a tahara. They will wash the body, drape them in shrouds. With men, they will put the prayer shawl that that person used during their lifetime. They'll dress them in that and have a kippah, and then they're dressed in a shroud, and then in a plain pine coffin. In Israel, they don't have coffins; they just use shrouds. But here in Australia, we use coffins. So usually, the same as in Islam, a person is buried as soon as possible after, usually within the first 24 or 48 hours after they die. I'll go on first to organ donations. Within the Jewish religion, a person can donate organs. There's a concept called pikuach nefesh, which is sanctity of human life, which I mentioned before. So anything that can be done in order to save a human life, you're allowed to do. So a Jewish person is considered dead when their brain stops functioning. Okay, not their heart, but their brain. Used to be when their heart stopped functioning, but now it is when the brain stem stops functioning. And if a person gives permission for organ transplants, then that is acceptable. However, in the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox community, it is very important that a person is buried whole. In fact, there's a religious organization called Zaka in Israel. Whenever there's a terrorist thing and there's explosions and people's bodies unfortunately are spread all over everywhere, their job is to go and collect all the body parts and to work out who it belongs to so that the person is buried as whole as possible. Okay, so even though it is permissible, but within the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox community, very rarely will a person, unless it's to a relative who needs it, or unless it's something like a kidney or something that, or a bit of a liver or something like that, where it's not going to impact negatively the person's life. All strands of Judaism are against active euthanasia. All right. Then, however, the passive euthanasia, depending on the individual strand of Judaism or your individual belief. Okay. With the ultra-Orthodox, these are the guys with the black hats and the black coats and the curls and all the rest of it. Their Rebbe, all right, it's not a rabbi, it is a Rebbe. Their Rebbe basically tells them everything that they need to do. So if a person's on the sort of the last stage of life, and they go and ask the Rebbe, can I do something? Can I promote the death or whatever it is? Whatever the Rebbe says is what they do. And a Rebbe will never say to promote death because as I said, they believe that God gave you your body and only God can take away your life. In some certain circumstances, passive euthanasia is allowed, but passive euthanasia means not, not hastening the death, but allowing a person to die with dignity. So it's basically more pain medication to allow the person to die. However, there is a proviso there. In the last 3 days before a person dies, they are given a title called gosses. Gosses is basically a person that they know is going to die in the next 72 hours, basically. And that person, as I said, you can give any sort of medication, but you can't, what they say is touch them. They liken the person to a flickering flame, and you can't touch the flame because inevitably if you touch the flame will go out. Passive euthanasia encompasses many, many things, including withdrawal of care, because when I was doing my research on this, it was amazing. 20% of people die in ICUs, which is just really blew my mind. But the most important thing, as I mentioned in the beliefs of Judaism, the dignity of difference. And dignity is a very, very important aspect of Judaism. And dignity in dying is equally as important, if not more important. So therefore, rather than doing lots of invasive procedures in an ICU that might prolong a person for a very short period of time, then they're not really living. There's no quality of life. There's no, all you're doing is giving them more pain, really, and taking away any dignity they have. And that's why I say it's so important that people discuss it with their families beforehand, under what circumstances they want to withdraw any further medical intervention. And that is quite acceptable in Judaism, because it's not active euthanasia, it is passive euthanasia. You do absolutely everything that you possibly can to save that human life. And as I said at the end of that quote that I read from that doctor in the ICU in America, he said that if the doctor in charge tells the family, we have done everything we possibly can, there is nothing more that we can do, then the onus goes on to the family in consultation with the doctor. And as I said, hopefully all of the family is on the same page, and then they could take the person away from hospital into a hospice situation and allow them to die according to their wishes. At end of life, if all of the family isn't on the same page, there's not a lot that can be done. Even if you've written out a advanced health directive, if some of the family object to that, then there's not a lot you can do. You know, sadly, you know, people have been taken to court and all these sort of horrible things that happen, and all it's doing is detracting from the dignity of dying. That you know, nothing is worse than having arguments in the room of a person who's dying, and the only thing that, you know, and we do strongly recommend that within Judaism, in all strands of Judaism, that if you were in a situation where you know that a person, you know, that they haven't got very long to live, that all the family gets together, discusses, you know, if the patient is able to participate in it, well and good. If not, then all the family comes together and tries to agree on how they're going to allow that person to die with dignity. And if that doesn't happen, sadly, there is no simple solution. But in most cases, I think people understand how important death with dignity is. So therefore, they make every effort to try to prevent those end of life hiccups. There's a wonderful quote here, if you don't mind me reading it, from Dr. Dennis Prager, who's Director of Clinical Ethics, Columbia University Medical Center, who's an Orthodox Jew and works in the ICU. So he knows what he's talking about. The choice is not between the false spectre of so-called death panels eager to pull the plug on a patient and those who would use technology to prolong the suffering of dying patients. There is a way to respect the sanctity of life of a gossess while withholding or removing impediments to a peaceful death. But this requires physicians with wisdom, expert clinical judgment, skills of communication, and sensitivity to the value of life and the concerns of family. It also requires sensitive guidance from spiritual leaders who sometimes view death as an enemy rather than inevitable, and who should heed the wisdom of Ecclesiastes that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. In the case of a child, when we said before that there is, in the last 3 days, that you're not meant to touch the person. However, by touching the person is a judgmental thing. That with a child, obviously the parent, you know, would like to cuddle the child, and that is quite acceptable. There's absolutely no hard and fast rules of things you should do, things you shouldn't do, or anything like that. These are guidelines only. So if a parent wants to cuddle the child, lie in bed with the child, kiss the child, you know, do whatever is going to make that child less fearful, and also, to be quite honest, to help the parent as well. That it's just as important for the parent to be able to have that quality time with the child and allow the child to die with dignity, and to have those beautiful memories of the last 2 or 3 days of that child's life. So, you know, at the end of the day, you do what feels right for you. And as far as medical intervention, then you know, obviously pain medication to make the child as pain-free as possible, and anything else that, you know, that is going to make the child you know, die with dignity. Yeah. So in the case of a child who is born with a degenerative disease or a life-threatening illness, you know, from birth, there's still, that person still has dignity. They still have a purpose in the world, and there's still, under those circumstances, there's still no excuse for active euthanasia. That yes, passive euthanasia is acceptable. In a case like that, it is up to the parents, up to the family, to decide what they want to do, whether they want to take the child out of a hospital, put them into palliative care, and give them the best possible care that they can in the last few days that they have on this earth. It is very much a whole of family decision. If they want to involve spiritual leaders, the rabbi, then they're more than welcome to do that. There's not, in cases like that, sadly, there's not a lot that the rabbi or the spiritual leader will be able to add, other than to recommend to them that they recite Psalms. And also sometimes there's a superstition that if you change their name, then the angel of death will pass over them and won't take them. So there's a special service in the synagogue where they change their Hebrew name. Does it work? Sadly, it doesn't work. But it's it sometimes it gives the family that hope of that it might work. And look, you do whatever you can in any circumstances to make the life of the family as easy as possible during this traumatic time of their lives. And so anything that you can do that is going to lessen the pain, if that's at all possible, then you do those things. Thank you very much for listening to this video. We really appreciate the fact that you've made that effort to learn a little bit more about Judaism, the Jewish concept of Judaism and the Jewish concepts of the end of life in particular. And it is probably appropriate that I end it with a blessing. This is the priestly blessing that Aaron the high priest blessed the children of Israel, and the descendants of Aaron are called Kohanim, and they on the Sabbath and festival also bless everyone with this same blessing. And it goes like this: Yivarechecha Adonai Yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai Panav Alecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai Panav Alecha v'yasen lahem shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord lift up his face to shine upon you. May the Lord bring you peace, health, happiness and prosperity now and forever. Amen.